Okay, so to start off, we just want to introduce ourselves as well. So we are members of the National Student Advisory Council of Neurodiversity Alliance. My name is Allie. I'm a senior in college and I have ADHD and autism.
Hi, I'm Catherine. I am a sophomore in college and I have dyslexia.
Hi, I'm Sean. I'm a high school junior. I have dyslexia and dysgraphia.
Hello, my name is Julian Bushikur. I'm a high school senior, and I have autism, ADHD, and dyslexia.
Okay, so just to get started, so what is neurodiversity? I know it's a term that, is talked about a lot. It's in the name of our organization, the Neurodiversity Alliance. But neurodiversity in general is a term that refers to the diversity of human minds. It is the infinite variation in neurocognitive functioning in our species among humans. And so some people might identify as neurotypical, some people might identify as neurodivergent, which just has to do with whether one's way of thinking and moving through the world is what is typical compared to what like most people think and behave like. But neurodiversity itself, it just kind of encompasses all of that diversity and all the different ways that people are different.
Okay, so what is advocacy? There are going to be three things mentioned today's in webinar. One of them is going to be talking about self-advocacy, individual advocacy, and systems advocacy.
Self-advocacy we defined as the ability to speak up for yourself and things that are important to you. This is extremely important for neurodivergent individuals because this is how we're able to explain to teachers, jobs, colleges, like what we need, like IEP, 504, like those like documents that are pretty critical to being a neurodivergent individual. And this skill will be important throughout your life and like wherever you go, and it will allow you to convey who you are and what you need to be successful. It's extremely important that everyone starts self-advocacy as soon as they can and improves the skill, even though it is a very hard task.
Okay, so there's certain things that you need to know about if you want to advocate for yourself, and so those are your accommodations, so your legal documents, your 504s, your IEPs. And so basically, that's the legal documentation that ensures that you will get the accommodations that you require by government law. And you also need to know, like, okay, so how does my ND hinder or like boost me? Like what is my effect? Or I guess what is the effect of my ND? And what do I need to be successful? And then, of course, there are certain resources and tools that you can use in the workplace and in school. So, for example, in the workplace, you have your HR department, and of course you have like legal rights that you can address to the HR department, and they will have to follow your demands. And if they don't, then you might have to seek out legal options because they are legally guaranteed to you. All right. So to continue it, if you realize your teacher didn't honor your accommodation plan, it's a good idea to first talk to them and figure out like why do they think it, and you can educate them and kind of open their mind. And if they still don't believe you, then you can get specialists, your parents, and higher school authorities to help you out. And if your employer wants you to do something that is challenging to you, or that you don't want to do because of your neurodiversity, and they're coercing you, you should inform them and go to HR. But if that doesn't work, because workplaces are a little bit more difficult, then it's probably a good idea to then get a lawyer.
An example of why this is so important is I have a family member who, for his English class, his teacher told him they were like doing a practice essay assignment. And his teacher told them, just don't use your accommodations on this one assignment. It's not worth many points. But then, like, when he got closer to the end of the year, eventually those points started to matter. And if he were to have gotten 1 point better on that assignment, it would have made the difference between a whole letter grade. So it's really important that you emphasize and talk to teachers, employers, whoever, that you get your rights, because a small thing just like that, it can make a huge difference.
That's right, Sean. I have a personal story to share related to self-advocacy as well, and making sure that accommodations are met. So in one of the classes I've taken in college, I have accommodations to take my tests, my exams, including finals as well, in the Disability Services Center at my university, and with extra time as well. And so I'd been doing that for the whole semester. And for my final exam, it was the same deal. I, coordinated taking the final with my professor as well as with the Disability Services Center office. And, it all went smoothly. I'd been taking exams for that class in that same way the whole semester. But then when it was time for our grades to come out at the end of after the semester had ended, my grade for some reason showed that I had not showed up as if I had not taken the final. And so that affected my final grade in the class, which was, it's not like it was a horrible grade. It was but I had an A in the class before doing the final. And so I was like, I know I took the final. So I had to go in, and unfortunately this happened, but I still got it figured out. And I really had to self-advocate and go to like the university like registrar, and it turned out that my professor just hadn't gone to the disabled student services office and retrieved my exam, so he just for some reason marked it as if I never took it, which is kind of questionable. But it just goes to show that self-advocacy in those situations is really important, because sometimes people aren't going to honor your accommodations or like acknowledge that your efforts when you do things differently or with accommodations as well. So if I hadn't spoken up to that professor throughout the summer and even the semester after, and the university office as well, I wouldn't have gotten my grade change. And it turned out that I actually got an A on the final, and I ended up with an A in the class, but had to go through everyone to make sure that it was fixed, because yeah, it can be tough sometimes to not have things acknowledged. So I first talked to the professor, then I talked to the disability services office, and then I talked to the school. And if it wasn't fixed, I was ready to get Title IX involved. But thankfully that didn't have to happen. But yeah, so just really goes to show the importance of self-advocacy.
Individual advocacy is when a person or people works to focus their advocacy on like the efforts of themselves, or if it's people like uh those people. And there are two different types of it. There's formal, which would involve organizations or something, like getting the word out in your school or in your job or something like that. And then there's informal, which would be talking to like parents, friends, family members, and anyone who that could impact your neurodiversity.
I would also mention specifically for those who aren't familiar with the Neurodiversity Alliance, this is a nonprofit that focuses on what would fall into the categories of formal advocacy. So it's a nonprofit organization that focuses on advocating for neurodiverse students at the high school, college, and even like beyond that and before that as well, through the mentoring program. And so if you want a clear-cut example of formal advocacy, that's kind of what Neurodiversity Alliance does as, a formal organization. And then I'm sure all of you have examples of informal advocacy as well. So, things like parents speaking up for you, friends speaking up for you. Yeah, it's kind of like a step beyond self-advocacy, but not to say that self-advocacy isn't important, but a step beyond, like when you think about it, like you at the individual level, but then kind of going above into the community. Yeah.
Individual advocacy. So this is what to be aware of. Everyone's neurodivergent impacts them differently, and to make sure what makes yours unique to yours. And everyone considers this a different perspective. Make the effort to learn others' perspectives by communicating them directly. So speaking up and sharing how your neurodiverse affects you, because sometimes you can have similarities with people and you can connect and understand, oh, we've done this, so let's try to connect and do this better. Some examples that we did as a group is being mindful around asking someone to take notes for a group or something, because someone with dyslexia or dysgraphia might struggle to do that. Instead, ask the group as a whole to find someone who's more comfortable doing it. Personal experiences: when I was in elementary school, I had to write down on our board like our notes that for our group, and I was misspelling a lot of the words, and people were like, "Why are you misspelling them? These are easy words. You should be knowing how to spell." And then someone else took that task on, but I had to advocate, being like, I have dyslexia and I can't always spell and like go as this so fast. Another example that we have here is when asking someone to read out loud to a group, but someone with dyslexia might struggle and not feel confident reading out loud in front of a group.
Okay, so the next type of advocacy we're going to talk about. So if we think of this as, an onion with the inner layer being self-advocacy and then it branching out as another layer into individual advocacy, systems advocacy is kind of like it's like the outer layer of the onion, kind of, if that's how you want to think about it. So systems advocacy involves changing policies, laws, or rules that impact how someone lives their life. And this can be targeted at the local, state, national, or even at a global scale. So systems advocacy can be directly like in a community. So systems advocacy can involve advocacy for changing school policies, changing community policies. Those things would totally count as systems advocacy, because it's not just at an individual level and it's not just at a person to person or group to group level. It's the kind of governing body overall, whether it's of a school, of a government, of an organization. And yeah, so the target really depends on the type of issue and who has authority over making this systematic change. So one example of this would be, well, recently something that me and the members of my neurodiversity club at my university did recently. So for those who aren't familiar, Section 504 is a section on the 1973 Rehabilitation Act, which is a federal civil rights law that helps to ensure, sets the rule that those who have disabilities of any type should be will be granted equitable access to education and educational accommodations, as well as accommodations and equity in the workplace. And while that is a federal piece of legislation, with funding cuts to the Department of Education, when it comes to oversight and actually being able to enforce that on a state and a local level, even though it's legally required, that becomes more of a challenge. So while at my university in particular, we weren't focused on changing that law, of course, because it's a really great law, but more so advocating for its enforcement, because even though it is, at a federal level, with the extent to which it can actually be enforced on a state and local level becomes limited when there's less federal oversight from the Department of Education. So we came together, we had this whole like Section 504 advocacy and information event. And we also had people sign on to a letter that we wrote. So I live in California, to Governor Newsom and to the California State Senate, explaining the importance of Section 504 and proposing ways, including personal narratives, of how Section 504 can further be protected, even with cuts in employment and funding to the U.S. Department of Education. So that was kind of our advocacy at a state level to help protect a federal piece of legislation, but that would just be one example. There's a lot of different things you can do as well. But yeah.
All right, so some ways that you can spread, well, how you can spread awareness in some ways you can is that you could like, so for example, like do posters about like a club or about neurodiversity at your school. So by a club, I mean like if you have a chapter of the ND Alliance or if you have your own neurodiversity club, you can make an organization to advocate for neurodivergent students. But you can also just try to create a positive outlook by just like showing others and exposing them to, neurodiverse experiences, like what neurodivergent people are like, and you can kind of open their mind because a big factor in intolerance is just us ignorance, not being exposed and having nothing to challenge harmful narratives and indoctrination. Obviously you can just do direct advocacy, speaking up in public, and you can also share your own story, because like people definitely resonate a lot with personal experiences. Actually, a way I spread awareness for neurodiversity is that I had this issue with a club at my school, or just like with school extracurriculars, and I was able to bring this complaint to the principal and get policy change on a district level, which to include neurodivergent students.
It sounds like a great example of systems advocacy, Julian. That's great. Okay. I also have some specific examples. I was actually planning on putting pictures into this of these because these are actual things that my club and people at my school have done, but totally forgot about that. So if anyone wants pictures of these things or more information, please let me know. I can put my email in the chat later. Anyways, so one specific example when it comes to spreading awareness, because as you know, awareness is somewhat of the gate that must open to lead into advocacy. So without awareness, we don't really have, a strong sense of advocacy. So it is really important to have both. But so one example is, so at my university, our library here, every month or so, there's displays around a lot of important events or themes. So for example, during Women's History Month, there's like a Women's History Month themed display. I think during Black History Month, there's a Black History Month display and featuring authors as well as books centering on topics related to a particular population topic or like celebratory month. And so something that me and other neurodivergent students at my university noticed is that there was no representation in those displays when it comes to disability in general, but specifically, especially not neurodiversity. And so last April, we're also doing it this month too, this year, we reached out to the librarians and talked about basically with a proposal to have a neurodiversity themed book display during April, which is, I believe, Neurodiversity Acceptance and Awareness Month in general. There's a lot of different months. I think there's also Neurodiversity Celebration Week in March. So it doesn't really matter as much the date, but anyways, we just so happened to find a time when the library was available too. So our team worked with the library's team as well, and we were able to compile a book list of books by neurodivergent authors, as well as a book list of books about topics related to neurodiversity and people's experiences. And we also were able to work with the library to create a whole resources page on our library website that is permanently there actually on the website, where so people can, when they go to the library website, there's like a neurodiversity resource guide, and it links to those book lists as well as to different resources in the library, such as there's free earplugs, there's quiet spaces, how to book a quiet room in the library, and so on. But anyways, so that's a permanent thing on the website, which is kind of cool. But the thing that happens just for a few weeks out of the year is the display. And the display, there's, some of those books, there's a little sign, there's all kinds of things there that people can learn about, but just to have an overall awareness, even if someone, the end goal isn't someone necessarily to have someone check out every single book on neurodiversity and that kind of thing, but more so if someone walks away from that display knowing what neurodiversity is and knowing why these identities are important, that is, that's effective, that's awareness, and that is a very valuable thing. So that's just an example. Libraries are an amazing way to disseminate information, and yeah, and are great places to store information too. Yes, and to another idea is to host a panel at a school event about neurodiversity and the experiences of neurodivergent students. So kind of including a diverse variety of people, inviting people on campus. I know a challenge in some ways in the past from my neurodiversity club has been kind of bridging the gap between our club and the rest of the campus community. So making not only events for our club members, but also that are open to the community. So for example, like a panel, but those types of things can be helpful too, to kind of make sure that the messages that you're getting across aren't just within an echo chamber of people who already know what neurodiversity is and care about it, but also helping more people learn about neurodiversity and care about it.
I've done some similar things. One of the things I've done, I actually go to a pretty small school. It's about like 120 people per grade. So I was able to go to an assembly, and I was able to speak on like neurodiversity and like say like come to my club, like hear some good things about neurodiversity, stuff like that. And I was also able to contact and meet with the like the director of the school, and she was able to help me and set me up on a path that got a lot of things that I needed to get done for my club and my I like for the information I wanted to spread. She was able to help with that a lot.
Okay, so now to transition into the discussion aspect of this webinar, I think all of us had the idea that a big portion of this, of course, would be, presentations, setting some ideas and definitions out there, but a really important thing to us is to engage with the community. And those of you who are attending, if you're comfortable and want to also share your ideas and kind of engage in a dialogue with us. So we have some discussion questions, but I also know that people have been mentioning things in the chat as throughout the presentation, which thank you guys so much. So I think first we'll kind of go through and address comments and questions in the chat. As for the discussion questions, people are more than welcome to raise your hand and then unmute yourself to answer any of them or share any thoughts, even on anything we presented, or to share your thoughts, answers, comments, anything in the chat as well. And yeah. Okay, so first of all, someone mentioned in the chat, can I get a copy of this presentation? Yes, absolutely. So first of all, this webinar itself is being recorded. And so that link will become available, and I'm sure we can also find a way to send out the slides as well. And someone else said, I'm really interested in understanding different experiences. Would anyone be comfortable sharing what types of disabilities they have if it's relevant to the discussion? This person says they have autism and they went to college in 2021 and studied political science history. And yeah, does anyone else on the council kind of want to share more? I know we kind of mentioned what our diagnoses are in the beginning, but if anyone else wants to, I don't know.
I guess I can start. I have dyslexia I have dyslexia and dysgraphia, and that's really impacted me with like reading, writing, all of that. And I think I started out like in first grade testing like bottom 10% and kind of around there. And what I've done like over the years is I had a bunch of support, and I met with tutors, and writing was very hard for me as just in general. And I met with tutors all throughout my school year up until like now essentially. But I've met with tutors and teachers, and I just constantly I like bring back self-advocacy. I constantly kept talking to people, talking. And what I realized is the more people you communicate with, the more people you connect and bring together to support you, the better you can become. And I've went from literally the bottom of my class to up at the top. And it's been a really weird experience, like looking back on it, noticing like such a big difference in like my process.
I can share next. I have dyslexia and I was first diagnosed in the second grade. So school has been really hard for me. And just managing to stay on top of like my homework and same as Sean, I also had tutors leading up to now. And originally I didn't think when I was in eighth grade I was gonna even get to high school because of how hard school was for me. But I'm proud to say that I've graduated high school and that I'm in my second year of college and I'm doing connecting back to advocacy. I've connected with my disability services on my campus to help me with my accommodations. Every semester, I meet with my professors to make sure that I'm on the same page with them, that what I need in the classroom and what I need out of the classroom. So those are some ways I've also connected.
So when I was very young, my autism basically made me nonverbal, and the doctors at the time thought that I cannot be a functional adult. However, through like a bunch of support through speech therapies, my mom and my family were able to make me a very productive person. So now I'm like top 10% of my school, and I'm gonna go to college on a full ride scholarship to study mechanical engineering. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Awesome. Thank you guys all for sharing your experiences. I'm so proud of all of you guys and everyone in the chat too. It's really awesome. The power of advocacy and throughout my childhood as well. So I went through most of my childhood not being diagnosed until I was 17, actually. And but yet my neurodiversity was definitely impacting me a lot to the point kind of similar to what Catherine was saying. Like by the time it was eighth grade, I was not sure if I would even get to high school. I think, and it's funny because I was like behavioral people I was seeing at the time were even saying like, you might have to like take a break from school or something. This is not working. And I was like, yeah. Anyways, so I went through somehow, most of my K through 12 career without accommodations. And that was really, really difficult. So I really struggled academically in high school in particular. And it really, really transforms your self view and like what you think you're capable of when you think everything is just due to some kind of like inherent fault inside of you. Anyways, but I turned part of that, I think part of it has to do as well with differences and like atypicalities in how certain things are presented in, for example, in different genders and different societies. So I was actually living internationally for a while for some of my childhood too. So there's differences in how things were screened. Anyways, but then when I was 17, my senior year of high school, I was diagnosed with ADHD, and then in college, I was diagnosed with autism. But anyways, but it was really cool because then I started college when I was 18, and my academic, social, and just personal sense of self and accomplishment is just totally transformed in the past couple of few years, just knowing about my neurodiversity, not even just on like an individual level, but in the ways that I'm able to advocate for myself. So when I came into college, that was actually my first time having accommodations, and for the first time in my like life, basically I felt like, wow, I can actually do school and like do well in it. And so it's really transformative to have access to information about yourself and your identity, and to have access to the language and the frameworks of actually advocating for yourself. So yeah, I'm really grateful to be here too. And yeah, and I'm graduating this spring, and I'm actually the outstanding graduate of my college too. So that's really cool. Yeah, just the leaps and bounds that you really get to when you actually get the support that you need is kind of crazy. And that when you're able to advocate for yourself too. Um, yeah, so could go into that more, but yeah, thanks everyone for sharing. And someone else shared that they have ADHD, sensory processing difficulties, and a slow processing speed. They're not a full-time student anymore, but doing part-time classes while working. That's super cool. Someone else said they're a high school senior and have ADHD, dyscalculia, and dyslexia. Someone said that they are a full-time college student and have accommodations for ADHD and OCD, as well as other mental health diagnoses. Very cool. Someone said that they are a full-time college student and have autism. And another said they are a full-time college student that has accommodations for ADHD, OCD, and auditory processing disorders. That's really cool. I'm really glad to hear that everyone's getting the accommodations that they need and pursuing an education. And yeah, let me see. Okay, for the next part, someone said that they're really passionate about getting involved in disability advocacy and leadership. Are there any fellowships, leadership programs, or opportunities within this organization? Oh, okay. I so Kellen, do you want to answer this? Because I know that you replied to this person in the chat as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So our experiences and opportunities do vary. So I can definitely provide some more follow-up information at the end of the presentation. I'll also send out a mailer to everyone that is included in this presentation here today. So I could definitely sort of chat about that a little bit more at the end. But I'll let you all maybe answer some of these questions here first, and then I can talk a little bit more at the end.
Awesome. And okay, and the next person said, was wondering what activities we all done during our club meetings. Does someone else want to chime in on that?
I guess I'll start. So I have a weird system with my club. I do a monthly like special meeting where I do something new, I do something like exciting or something, and then I have like normal meetings which aren't bad. They're just like, you come in, you like hang out with everyone else and you kind of just like be there together. The special meetings, two examples are I've brought in a speaker. One was um two alumni, and then another speaker was the head of learning special, like a previous teacher at the school who like became a head learning specialist at a different school. So those are two examples. It doesn't have to be that complex. It can just be like, you meet, you have fun with everyone else, but you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, I would say my club in particular, we kind of blend our advocacy and awareness kind of things with also, the community building, the um, inclusion and sense of belonging aspect. So like Sean was saying, it's kind of depends on the meeting. Some will be more oriented towards planning for example, like the 504 like advocacy event, and some will be more focused on, okay, we're gonna have just a positive environment here and um, be inclusive of various people's neurodiversity and that kind of thing. But in terms of specific activities, for like fun kind of activities, we've done a lot of things. We've done like karaoke, but like also have like sensory friendly options too. Something we really like to do is have multiple options rather than having everyone expected to do one thing. We have multiple options. That's really helpful in terms, especially when there's differences in like sensory profiles or even like social preferences too. So we have like a conversation starter thing if people want like a quieter activity to do or something that gives people the chance to talk about. We've done like bingos that help people get to know each other and mingle with people they haven't talked to before. Lots of crafts, lots of different things, but yeah. And again, that's another thing we can talk about more about too. At another time if you are interested. Okay, another person said, what is one thing you think is a positive aspect of being ND? Ooh, okay, and I love this person's response. Does the person want to share? Would you like me to read it out? Okay, I can read it out. So someone responded and said, for me, there are so many things, creativity, passion. I have some personal weaknesses that are also normative weaknesses, but I also have personal strengths that are also normative strengths. So relate to that. Who else wants to chime in about what they think? So there's
I will. So for me, I would say that one of my strengths is just the ability to get like really into something, which can help with like finishing a project or learning a specific subject. Like that really does help me out. Besides that, I won't say there's anything that I necessarily attribute to my ND. Like I know that there's a stereotype that people with autism are smart, but I don't think my smartness comes from autism. That's just me. Um, but I do think that there's a lot of things that can come. So yeah, as this person said, creativity, passion, definitely. I agree with that. Anyone else want to share?
I guess I can go next. I think probably the best thing about being neurodivergent is struggling with neurodiversity. And I don't mean that as an I enjoy like the hardship. I think it's just pushed me to be a better person. Like I would have never been such a good advocate for myself. I would have never looked for these opportunities. I would have never like done so much if it weren't for being neurodivergent. I probably wouldn't be like as good at doing like school or whatever. And it's just something that like it's weird because you have to deal with the challenges to get the reward, and it's I don't know how to explain it, but I guess that's the best thing I got.
Yeah, bouncing off all of those, I also feel like that with my neurodivergent, I've worked a little harder than other people, and that has made me realize that it's okay that every path is different. My path might be different than someone else's, but we're gonna get to like the same destination. That's actually a quote kind of thing that I like kept going through my academics is like, yeah, my path might be the person sitting next to me differently, but we're gonna get to the same destination and we're all gonna succeed really well.
I love that, guys. I think overall it seems like there's a lot of resilience that's kind of comes from the process of dealing with especially school and, growing up neurodivergent too. And I would also say that for me, a strength similar to what others brought up is definitely passion, at least for me. I feel when I'm passionate about something and interested in something, I'm like completely interested in it, which sometimes can be a weakness and something that is difficult, but in a lot of ways it's also a strength. And especially I think academia at first sometimes can be like a really awesome thing that pairs with that, because I like get so excited to go to class and do my things because it's topics I'm really interested in. So that can somehow sometimes be like definitely a motivator. But I would also say increased I just personally I would say I just developed the ability was sorry, not that I've developed. I think it's been really cool to learn about other people's perspectives too. I would say this isn't inherent to being neurodivergent, but being a part of the community and around others who are like and unlike me has helped me to learn about a lot of other people and their disabilities, their experiences with disability, um, and neurodiversity, and to build a sense of empathy for others. And I think Julian mentioned a good point too. There's a lot of stereotypes around various forms of neurodiversity. And I think it's important to acknowledge that there's different levels of support needs among people. And oftentimes, some people in the community aren't as represented or like spoken up for. So I think for me, it's really given me like a drive to do my part to help speak up for people who aren't as represented, or who are like misrepresented. And yeah, kind of like it's a broad answer, but yes. Okay, you guys are all awesome. And okay, and then someone also asked, ooh, okay, and then hang on, I'm gonna get back to these questions, but one that's related to this one was that I agree with all of you too. I will also say that even having gone through burnout, even though it sucks, has forced me to prioritize my well-being, which is a really good thing to prioritize and will be really useful for me in the long run. Yes, totally understand that. Being prone to burnout is really debilitating sometimes, but in a way, it kind of like forces you to find a way to manage it and to really prioritize your self-care, which is something in a way that can end up being a benefit. So totally relate to that. Okay, and then someone mentioned, hi, did you have difficulty getting people to come to club meetings to start with? Does someone want to tackle this one?
Yeah, I'll say it is extremely hard to get people to go to club meetings. I have a few friends with neurodiversity, and none of them really wanted to like join the club. It's nothing against the club or anything. They just like weren't interested. And there's a lot of people who like have neurodiversity but aren't interested in doing that, and that's completely fine. But the thing is, you have to like know like everyone here showed up to this meeting and is clearly passionate about this. And if there's enough people to have meetings like this and have this organization, you'll definitely be able to find people in your school and wherever you are that do care about neurodiversity. And even in like my small school, I was able to find like 20 people who, even though like they don't necessarily show up all the time, they do care about it and like try to participate.
Yeah, I would just want to acknowledge it is challenging sometimes and kind of intimidating. I don't know whether you're just starting your club or aiming to build your member base. It can be challenging sometimes. People in high school and college and whatever level of education tend to be really busy, and enticing someone into join something that there's somewhat of a commitment to can be a challenge. But I agree with Sean, finding the people who are able to finding the people who want to be there is where you will find a lot of value. I know that's so one thing we've done specifically in my club, we have a really strong member base, but something we've done to build it this is something that's kind of like on a larger scale, but and requires a lot of work on like the officer team's part. But if you're able to, is so emailed, sent like a mass email to every single faculty member and lecturer in like a lot of the departments in my university, basically doing this mass scheduling thing where me and other officers and members of my club would sign up for different slots in the beginnings of their classes at the beginning of a semester. So I think we ended up giving like over 80 different mini presentations to like 80 different classes. So it's kind of a lot and a lot to organize. Again, totally. So that might be something that to work up to, but it was really, really effective. And we were able to really get the word out. And so there are a lot of people who joined our club were like, I would have joined this in the past. I just didn't know about it. And so spreading the word to as many people as possible and getting the idea out there, it's kind of the foot in the door technique too. If you get them to come to one meeting, they're more likely to come to more meetings and that kind of thing too. Yeah, but just to acknowledge, yes, it has been difficult at some points, but it is definitely possible and it takes time, but it is possible to build a member base and to find the people who want to and care about the causes that are important to you. Okay, I know we only have a few minutes left, but do we want to start going through the discussion questions? Does anyone want to share in the chat like what would be most helpful to them right now? Does anyone in the chat want to share out loud too? Because you're also totally welcome to. Totally okay if not to.
Yeah, if anybody else has any more questions, we would love to hear from you. You're welcome to put it in the chat, or as Ali just mentioned, you're welcome to come off mic as well, if you want to, of course.
Okay, cool. And if your mind changes, okay. Someone says, question about clubs. How important is it to get the buy-in from the head of the school when getting the word out? I'm assuming by head of school, you're kind of talking more in like a high school setting. So Sean, do you want to kind of go over this?
Yeah, I'll say what I did was not necessary. I just tried to go like above and beyond. Like I was, I was trying to cover all my bases. I would recommend trying to speak at assemblies or anything where you can really get the word out. Or my school is a club fair, and that got a ton of members interested. Just really like get the word out there. You don't need to get anyone big or important involved. I just tried to do extra.
Yeah, I would say you don't necessarily need to have the principal being like, yeah, guys, but could be helpful if you want to tell them about it. But as Sean was saying, like getting the word out to students and in people's classes is helpful too. But yeah, it's awesome. Okay, so to go over some of the discussion questions. So first we had, how can neurodivergent students learn more about the perspectives of other neurodivergent students, especially those with different diagnoses or conditions? Does anyone want to share ideas?
I guess you can just kind of ask. I know that that's like a no-brainer, but that's very important, like hearing other people out, being willing to listen. I think that that's definitely the first step to learning other perspectives.
Oh, Lolly, were you trying to unmute? Because I see you speaking, but were you trying to unmute or no? Or no? Okay, never mind. No worries. Yeah, I agree, Julian. I think that involving it's funny because we talk about neurodiversity as a form of diversity, but I think it's also really important to acknowledge diversity within neurodiversity. Because neurodiversity is not a clinical term. It's mainly kind of like a sociological identity kind of term that fits a lot under one umbrella. But so with that being said, there's a lot of people who identify as such, and I think it's really important to learn people's experiences because as was mentioned in the presentation, not every neurodivergent person's experience is going to be the same as another neurodivergent person's experience, especially when there's a lot of different like diagnoses and conditions and life paths. So I think getting representation on officer teams and in like advisory councils like the ND Alliance has is a helpful way to learn about different people's perspectives. Yeah, anyone else want to add on to that, or shall we go to the next one?
Well, I think Ellie, actually, we're gonna wrap it up here. If there's any other questions anyone has, feel free to type it in. Happy to answer it for you. But before we do leave this evening, one thing that I did want to just chat about briefly is just to share some more information about the Neurodiversity Alliance. One, we started over 25 years ago as a program called Eye to Eye. And we had changed our name into the Neurodiversity Alliance. So what our club models offer is we offer mentoring programs, we offer club support and creating your own clubs at schools. And at the club level here, when we're talking about creating clubs, as all of our lovely students have discussed tonight, it is 100% free. So what we can provide as a club model, the Neurodiversity Alliance, is continued support. We can send you a starter kit to help you boost your club. I'll work with you one-on-one to help create the club, to help spread the word and get some more members, really anything. So that's my main role here at the Neurodiversity Alliance. I didn't even introduce myself. My name is Kellen. I'm one of the program managers here. Prior to my time here, I worked in higher education for about 14 years, primarily in disability resources offices. And so, again, with my role here, I oversee the club aspect, which I'll put some information in the chat here, as well as sending an email to all of you too. But what I would love to see is, again, your continued support and connection with us, because everything we do here is student-centric. Even tonight, this presentation, this was entirely created and led by our students, as you have noticed in the past hour here. These are all students who are part of our National Student Advisory Council, which is one of the many, many leadership opportunities that we also have here. We have over 75 paid leadership opportunities, which are almost entirely remote. And also get a free trip to our national summit every year in August. So I'll be sending more information about that as well, because we'd love to see more applications come in for some of these positions. So for example, all of our students here who presented tonight, who are part of our council, not only are passionate about neurodiversity, as you all have seen, they also get paid to be in this role. So this is something that's of interest to you as a student. We'd love to see you apply, and you can help be the face for us. And so, yeah, I'd love to be able to, again, provide more support. Love to connect you with our students. Feel free to connect with, of course, me at any time. You'll receive an email from me. You're welcome to email me back. And then, just real quick, I just wanted to read Claudia's question here. Which ND Alliance would help facilitate a monthly parent meeting where parents could share resources to further support their students? Claudia, that's a wonderful suggestion. And that's something that we've definitely sort of ruminated over in terms of being able to provide as well, because as I mentioned, at the forefront of what we do is all student-centric, right? High school students, college students, and our mentoring program with junior high students. But one thing I think we could definitely work on and provide more resources for, or provide a voice for, is for our parents of neurodivergent students. I am myself a neurodivergent person of a neurodivergent toddler. But yeah, we would love to be able to provide a space for parents. So thank you very much for bringing that up, because that's something we would like to create in our online portal / app that we have for all of our students. So I will send all this information to you in terms of learning more about our program model if you are interested in starting a club, or perhaps you know someone who is. And I'll also send information about our leadership positions, because those are open for about another, 8 or 9 days. And like I said, we'd love for you to read it over. And if it's something that really speaks to you, like we'd love to see you apply for it. Because again, we are entirely run by students, so everything that the students do, we enhance their leadership skills. We want them to get as much as they can out of this. So again, thank you very much for coming tonight, and we'll make this presentation available. But again, if you have any questions, definitely feel free to reach out to me once you receive an email from me. I'm happy to connect with you at any time. And yeah, thank you very much for attending, and we hope to see you at another one of our events very soon.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Wait, I
Thank
know we
you.
ended, but also but Lolly also said in chat, yes, I was wondering if you have any involvement opportunities for non-traditional students. I'm a student in a remote certificate program, but want to get more involved in connecting online. Oh, Kellen, do you want to answer this?
Yeah, so and this also because I had another question around this as well. Is the answer is yes, but with a sort of an asterisk as well. Many of our leadership opportunities are geared towards students who are currently enrolled in high school or college, or students who are just out of college, perhaps a year or two. But that's also going to vary depending on what leadership position might be of interest to you, because we also are looking for alum as well. So that's another part of our network is once a student is part of our network, whether it's a club or in a paid leadership role, they're with us for life. So we always want to engage our alum and make sure that we're doing right by alum and always keeping them engaged. So we do have positions for alum as well. So that question is a little bit of yes, a little bit of no. It just really depends on the nature of the position you might be seeking.
I know as well in the comment you mentioned wanting to get more involved connecting online, and I don't know if you know about the ND Alliance app, but we have an app too where people can connect and learn about different opportunities, other kind of webinars like this, all kinds of things. But yeah, feel free to reach out for more information about that too.
I apologize if I'm interrupting, but I quickly have to jump on to something else. Have a great night, everyone.
Thanks, Sean. Bye.
Any other questions I might be able to answer before I let you all go? Excellent. All right. Well, if you can think of any questions, again, please feel free to email me and or respond to my email that I'll send to all of you who did attend this evening. And if there's any other questions or clarification, I'm happy to email you back, meet with you, text, call, whatever is your preferred style of communication. I'm more than happy to do so. All right. Well, again, yeah, take care. And yeah, thank you to our wonderful council who helped us here tonight.
Bye.
Bye-bye.